Good morning from the warm heart of Africa, Malawi, which is my country. Thanks to the organizers for inviting me to share what's happening in Malawi. Just to give you a little bit of a picture of where Malawi is. Malawi is in the southern part of Africa, and we are about 17 million people. This?
Yes.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, so I will share a little bit of on Blantyre and Chikwawa. There are two districts. The other one is pure urban, and the other one is in the rural, but they do affect each other. So Blantyre urban is it's in the upstream of the Shire River, while Chikwawa is in the Shire Valley, and they all benefit from the Shire Basin. As I said, the other one is on the upstream, and the other one is on the downstream, and the upstream is usually called the Shire Highlands, while the other part is called the Lower Shire. Just to give you a little bit of an idea, Blantyre has got a number of hills. As I said, it's on the highlands. And one of them is the Soch Mountain, which was one of our pride mountain. If you can see on my left, it's written somewhere Kamuzu, long live Kamuzu. So it used to be well protected during Kamuzu time, who was our first president, and it used to be green. You'd see the houses were just limited to the ground or to the foot of the hill. But recently, due to urbanization, which is very high, one of the highest in Africa, people have started building up to the hill, cutting trees, building houses. So you see that's on the other side. So that's just a topographical map for Blantyre city. But I would want to share with you an experience we had in 2015, 2014. Our rainy season usually begins somewhere. Anyway, these days it's unpredictable. I think we used to have the first rains in October. Nowadays, it's either you have them in October or you don't. In 2014, our rains started in December 2014. And then, unfortunately, they were very stormy, and they continued until the first week of January 2015. As a result, they were stormy and very heavy. So we had floods starting in Blantyre, going down to the Lower Shire, which is Chikwawa. For Blantyre, 43 houses were the first ones to be damaged. These are the ones that are just up the hill. But then as it persisted, many more were affected. So just for Blantyre alone, we lost 10 people. And 2 people went missing, and they've never been found until now. 216 were injured. Over 3,000 were left homeless just in Blantyre. But these floods, after a longer time, or over time, they ended up affecting 15 districts in total. So I would say almost 50% of the country was affected. If you see the pictures on the screen, the one to my left, they are actually just on that hill that I showed you. And these places, as you see, one of them looks like, okay, there is a little bridge that was man-made, but it wasn't a bridge. That was a house, somebody's standing on somebody's house, but that was washed away during the floods. Even on the other side, history has it that there used to be a stream that used to pass there, but over time that dried up and people started building and they built houses around there. But during the 2015 floods, all those houses were washed away, including some of the residents for those houses. So what you see there, it's not just a stream, but it is a place where maybe 2 days before that, somebody was sleeping, and it was quite a good house. That's still just explaining how things were damaged at that point. You see the hill there, and then you see those big logs or stones that are there that were carried or moved from the mountain to the places where there were actual houses. Even on my right-hand side, the picture you see there, it's actually in somebody's house, and that used to be somebody's bedroom, and that's a Bible in that house. But unfortunately, the owner of that house actually has never been found since that time. And then just to give you a picture of what happened in the Lower Shire, we also had floods, and being a little bit rural, the most damage, apart from the houses or people dying, we found that over 44,000 gardens or field crops were damaged, crops washed away, water points being washed away, and even houses damaged. So those pictures just give you how things were during that time. And even worse still, our water system, which also relies on the same river, Shire River, couldn't work, including the power station. We used the hydroelectric power. All the 3 power stations depend on that river. They were all blocked. The machines couldn't work. There were a lot of silts, a lot of logs from wherever, materials from houses, all went through to the either turbines or to the power station and blocked things. So we really had the darkest days of our lives during that time, because we had no power, we had no water, and people's gardens had been washed away, houses damaged. So as NGOs, government, and development partners, we responded to the situation. We took the opportunity and worked hand in hand. We collaborated, we increased our coordination during the response period. Data was being collected and shared on weekly basis at the beginning, and later monthly basis. And we divided ourselves in different clusters: the water cluster, shelter, security, food, depending on different people's expertise, supporting the government at all levels, municipal level and at national level. And aid was being coordinated per cluster. Other interventions, of course, included water quality treatment. As I said, our water systems were not working, whether in urban or in rural, so we had to do port-to-port chlorination. The water board had to deliver water into people's, in the camps or in people's home. Also, continued water quality testing and hygiene promotion and campaigns were intensified. I'll just give an example in at least in the areas that we're focusing on. In our case, Blantyre, we were taking lead on the wash cluster for Blantyre. I'm pleased to say that despite of all that, but because of intense collaboration, coordination, and immediate response, we didn't have cholera case, although there were some cholera cases in some places, in some other districts, but and the risk was high to have that, but through the port-to-port chlorination and hygiene promotion campaigns, we successfully didn't have any case. And then after that, we came up with a recovery plan together as partners, government, NGOs, public sector, and the development partners, either from UN or other bilateral donors. One of the key things that we thought we needed to do was to do reforestation in all the areas that were affected, the hills, the mountains that were laid bare, intensify catchment management, implement integrated water resources management, rehabilitate some of the gravity-fed schemes or the water projects that had actually been washed away, boreholes, and also do some water safety plans. I would say that issues of catchment management or integrated water resources management have been a talk, and they're part of government policy in Malawi and even the 2013 Water Resources Act. However, implementation was very limited, and actually uptake was difficult and not being adopted by most of the communities and implementers. So we tried to develop different approaches that could incentivize communities in taking up the approaches. So we localized integrated water resources management in specific areas, worked hand in hand closely with the people, with the communities. So we focused on the 4 main IWRM principles, water being an infinite and vulnerable resource, essential to sustain development and environment. We emphasized on women engagement, community participation, as well as making sure that, okay, yes, water is is good, but it also has, it's yes a public good, but it also has an economic value. Trying to bring that message to the communities, because usually when we work with the low-income areas or the urban poor, it's very difficult to bring in issue of money or proper management of their water systems. So we had to come up with proper or incentives that will encourage the communities to participate and own the projects. So first of all, we promoted permaculture or reuse of the water, either wastewater or any water that would be stagnant anywhere. Provided motivation for the communities to engage through empowering them in operation and maintenance. So training the communities on how they can operate their own water systems, maintain them, but also helping them to understand the economic value of their water, but also understand what it costs to either operate, maintain, and actually replace. We used different approaches in terms of the economic value. That's where I would dwell much or intensify in or emphasize in my speech today, as well as on women engagement. These people, I think most of you agree with me, the people that live in the low-income areas or the informal settlements, as well as in most of the rural places, they are not bankable. They can't access any loan. They can't access any credit. And apparently, this time around, there is an upcoming habit or phenomena that where people do village savings bank or where they loan to each other. So it's becoming popular. So we took advantage of that approach and used it in this approach. So we, first of all, encouraged women to be in the committee. We used the 60-40 ratio. So to say, okay, in every committee, whether it's a catchment management committee, whether it's a water point committee, whatever it is in the community, that is, it should have 60% women or 40% men. We did this deliberately because most of the times, if even you went to a meeting and you ask people to say, okay, can you vote for leaders? The women would vote for men and men would vote for men. So it's usually mostly men would sit in those positions. However, in these areas, men don't stay in their areas most of the times. They would go out during the day somewhere else to look for money, as it's believed, and yet women are always readily available. So when you go to discuss or train or empower, you still always find the women and not the men. A few men will be there. So we deliberately encourage to say, okay, at least if we can have more women, so if all the men will be out on a certain day, at least the women will be empowered enough and strong enough to make decisions as well as to do something. So we trained these women and men, of course, in leadership position, in leadership skills, community management, operation and maintenance, and also financial management of their water resources in their communities. And apart from that, then we also brought in the issue of how they managed their wastewater. If you can see there, the women are going through training in terms of on how they can maintain a water point or a borehole pump. At the same time, you see the water that usually it's pumped from that water point, it's not properly managed. At the end, pigs play, take a bath, whatever they do, and it leaves the place nasty and not good. And mosquitoes are common in Malawi, and these end up becoming the bleeding places for mosquitoes and thereby even affecting people with malaria. And just telling people to go to the people and tell them, okay, if you leave this water like this, it will affect you, you'll get malaria, it doesn't look nice. The people wouldn't take that and they would not implement because they don't see the direct connection. So what we did was to say, okay, can you use this water? You don't have enough land, you don't have gardens, sometimes the rains are not throughout. Why can't you use this water and cultivate and grow crops? So you see down there that the water that was being wasted is properly managed. There is a garden at the end where these women and men, of course, go and cultivate and grow crops. And they get valuable, nutritious vegetables from such gardens. As a result, when they are meeting as a committee or as a community, they are not just talking about repairing a pump or planting trees for the catchment area or into the mountains, but they're also talking what plants should we plant in our at our water point garden. When we cultivated, when we harvested last time, who benefited? So they all have that interest to understand and know where that crop, who ate it, what happened with it. So in that case, they are continually engaged and they're continually participating because they have vested interest. In addition, in terms of the repairs, the money that they collect on day-to-day basis for their tariff to operate the pump is not just sitting somewhere. They raise enough money for operation and maintenance. The remaining money, they put it in one basket and lend it to each other. So use it as a capital for credit, and in that way they can borrow the money, start businesses, or do many other things, economic things that generate income for them. So although they are not bankable, they cannot access loans, but they're able to get money, to get loans, and do some businesses. So in that way, they have direct, immediate benefits. Another thing that I'll not settle, in terms of solid waste, as I said as well, it's an issue, especially in the urban. And just to tell people that you better manage your waste, it's very difficult. But if you tell them, okay, if you can manage this waste in a way that you come up with briquettes, then those briquettes you sell, in that way you use it as for energy, and you have money, you sell, or you use it yourself as energy. In that way, you are curbing deforestation. At the same time, people have interest to get money or to get energy. So that's just a process of briquettes making from waste, as well as even from sludge. One thing I didn't mention, that most of the people in Blantyre, they use on-site sanitation, so it's pit latrines, and when they are full, it's difficult to dig another pit. There isn't land enough, there isn't enough space. We've encouraged them, some of them instead, when their pit is full, I think somebody mentioned yesterday, they would just open something and direct the water or the waste into a river. But nowadays we say, okay, you can empty. We've encouraged people to do some business, empty the toilet, process it, and come up with either briquettes or compost. So in that way, they do see immediate value. So those are just briquettes made from solid waste and processed sludge. Just to give you an idea, because of the interest that people see, that they can even borrow money from their own water point, or by managing their water points properly, they can have vegetables because they are managing their water points properly. We found out that this is being implemented, and they make sure that their water point or their projects are continuing throughout. So 100% of the water points or the communities that are implementing this are actually having their water points function. Similarly, in terms of scaling, we've also found out that even communities that we did not go to, they are able to replicate, go to their neighbors and ask, how did you do it? Can we do it again? And we found that it's growing at 27%. A few lessons learned. Yes, community management is possible. I know Eleanor Cho, some of you can look for her. She said community management, she made a study and said community management doesn't work. But I think it's the way how you bring it. If people see immediate interest, because people don't connect rain coming with planting trees. But if they can see immediate benefits directly in what they're doing today, next week, then they will do it, while as you as an implementer, you know there is a longer term benefit. So make sure that you incentivize the communities to see some at least immediate benefit, like food, income generating activities. And community engaged for water point projects must include women at leadership, because they're always readily available. And also, I think I've already mentioned that people will get committed if they see immediate benefits. Never underrate the power of immediate personal interest. People do have other things that they can do, whether they don't have a full job, but they have other. I think somebody also yesterday mentioned that to get people to come to the meetings on voluntary basis is something. But if you can give them a certain incentive, in this case, to be committed into their community, because they see, okay, if I contribute, then I will be able to get a loan later, and that would help me now or tomorrow, other than in 10 or 100 years to come. So thank you very much. I think there's still more things that can be learned. So I said not all communities adopted, but those that communities really benefited. Thank you very much. Zikomo kwambiri.